안녕하세요. 나주마세입니다. 이번 영상은 인천에 있는 한 고등학교 학생들의 미국의 전통 음식과 관련된 질문에 원어민 친구들이 답한 영상입니다. 미국 문화 자체가 샐러드 볼처럼 다양성을 가지고 있기에 원어민 친구들의 대답은 참고로만 알아두시길 바래요.
안녕하세요. 아리입니다.
Everyone, my name is Lisa.
Hi, my name is Peter.
So that's a difficult question to answer because American food comes from many countries.
Right.
It's influenced from Germany, Britain, Ireland. That's how we got the food that we eat today. As for traditional, you would have to go back to Native American food.
Oh my goodness. Well, turkey at Thanksgiving, I guess. It's changed so much because when I was a little girl, the food was kind of bland. Very bland. No spices. Broccoli and the cauliflower was overcooked. So the broccoli was like kind of an olive green and very mushy. You could just gum it in your teeth. Yeah. So traditional American foods, gosh, I'm not sure what to answer there. There's so many different foods. And I feel that there are so many Americans who are from different cultures. So I think that every person's culture brings in different kinds of food to America, which is a great thing. I'm very grateful for it.
Yeah.
So I think, you have the hamburger, hot dog, steak group that feels very American. And I believe much of that is sort of American. Not that it necessarily all originated here, but certainly the popularity of, I think, those three is very high here. So I think those are very American foods. In general, I find American food to be fairly bland. When you think about what are American spices, let's say, I think salt and pepper are easy, but salt and pepper are pretty universal around the world. So it's not that it's American only, but I think it is when Americans think of adding something to their food from a spice perspective, they're typically talking about salt and pepper. So we have salt and pepper shakers on the table. That's how people can individually enhance the food on their plate. I would add that you have some green herbs that I think are fairly commonly used for special dishes. So like sage and thyme and rosemary, especially let's say a Thanksgiving dinner. Very common that stuffing and side dishes along with the turkey may include those spices. I tend to use those more often, I think, than the average cook does. So I'll use those throughout the year. And then, of course, there's the paprikas and the peppers and things like that. And I find that to be more ethnically oriented. I think potatoes is another pretty staple item in America. I know our family enjoys them like most families, but French fries, very commonly enjoyed. I think pizza, that's another very common thing. I think the hard parts about defining American food to me is that a lot of the food that I've mentioned here is a lot of food that's kid-friendly. There are kids in every culture, obviously. But I think that for Americans, when you look at what American kids like, American families tend to follow suit with that because that ends up being the common denominator that a family is going to eat. And so that makes food a little simpler. Because American kids, I don't believe, are typically raised on food that has spice to it, I think that ends up being one of the limiting factors for why, American food is relatively traditionally bland, in my opinion. I believe other cultures are going to be introducing the dishes that are their dishes to their children earlier because that's what they eat and that the children acclimate sooner in their life. I absolutely love a variety of world food, and I feel like it's a shame that American food doesn't quite stand up from a flavor perspective, in my opinion, to most other world foods. Now, I will say there are some dishes like meatloaf that I think can be astoundingly good and prepared many different ways. And I don't know that meatloaf is an American food, but certainly meatloaf is an American staple, regardless of its occurrence in other cultures. I think meatloaf is an example of another American staple. Fried chicken, as you mentioned earlier, certainly has a big historical part of American cuisine. Barbecue is another one that American has a very specific but pretty broad take on barbecue. So,
Okay, thank you.
sure.
Alright. 시청해주셔서 감사합니다. 영상이 조금이나마 도움이 되었다면 좋아요와 구독 부탁드릴게요. 항상 건강하시고 행복하세요. 바이.